You're watching Eagle News Evening Edition. Welcome back. Chancellor Angela Merkel cemented her political ascendancy in Europe when 25 out of 27 EU states agreed to a German-inspired pact for stricter budget discipline. For more of that news, we now have live in the studio our EU Bureau Chief Correspondent, Vina Karcz. Vina.
Thank you, Alma. Yes, as you mentioned, all but 2 of the European Union's 27 member states signed up to a treaty that threatens sanctions for breaches of budget deficit limits. Only Britain and the Czech Republic of the 27-member bloc refused to sign the fiscal compact, which will impose fines on rule breakers. Let's listen to what British Prime Minister David Cameron has to say.
Key point here for me is what is in our national interest. Now, our national interest is that these countries get on and sort out the mess that is the euro.
The treaty, which demands the incorporation of tighter budget rules into each nation's legislation, is being welcomed by European Central Bank President Mario Draghi.
The first step towards a fiscal union, it certainly will strengthen confidence in the euro area.
The summit in Brussels also agreed to bring in a €500 billion European stability mechanism to back heavily indebted countries a year earlier than planned. But differences over austerity limits and Greece's unfinished debt restructuring talks wrecked hopes for a more upbeat message that Europe's getting to grips with its debt crisis. The Euro State Agency said unemployment in the Eurozone hit a record high at the end of last year. The highest unemployment rate remains in Spain at 22.9%, while the lowest is in Austria at 4.1%.
A lot of problems that the Spanish government need to solve are also European problems. I'm thinking in particular of youth unemployment. It is unacceptable that almost a quarter of young people in Europe are unemployed.
The jobless rate in the 17 countries that use a single currency was 10.4% in December, unchanged from November's figure, which was revised up from 10.3%. Some 16.5 million people were out of work in the Eurozone in December, up 751,000 on the year before. And on Asia, Asian shares recovered earlier losses on Tuesday after Greek Prime Minister Lucas Papademos raised hopes for a deal to be reached this week to avoid a default, although markets were starting to worry that Portugal might need a second rescue. The Nikkei opened in the red, down 0.13% at 8781.44, but was up 4% at 8827.38 by the midday break.
I think is over time view Greece as the Middle East. And what I mean by that is that Greece will just muddle and keep on muddling, and Europe and the US will get used to this, and thus Asia will get used to this. So I don't see any major impacts on Asia, or let's put it this way, I see less and less influence of Europe on the Asian markets going forward.
And on Shanghai, Shanghai has bold plans to become a massive yuan trading hub by 2015. But its inability to reform quickly means Hong Kong will hold its crown as the top yuan trading hub. Shanghai is ramping up its goal to rival New York and London as a global finance center by 2020. Authorities have announced plans for Shanghai to become a massive onshore yuan trading hub in just 3 years. China's 2 financial capitals have long been competing for supremacy. Despite Shanghai's stellar growth, analysts say Hong Kong has nothing to fear, at least in the short term.
So I think that the one who will win that competition curiously will be Hong Kong, because I think that Shanghai will not be able to internationalize the yuan on a 3-year view. They simply will not have the rule of law with which to do that.
China has promoted Hong Kong as an international trading hub, helping its long-term goal to internationalize its currency. But for investors eager to trade the yuan, this week's move shows China still intends to call the shots on how and when it allows its currency to freely float.